Hello everyone. Okay, my name is Laquan Williams, and in this video, I wanted to talk about the latest episode of The Flash, which took place it took place several days ago on Tuesday. It was entitled the one with the 90s. It's the sixth episode. This is in the seventh season that this Flash is currently in. In this episode, it was only Cisco and Chester who were together in this alone. The rest of the team was in it, but the main mission, obviously, and story ensued with them, obviously, going to just work on some regular stuff out in the field, and unfortunately they got stuck in some type of time loop. They went back into the past in the 90s, specifically 1998, and that's obviously what happened. It was very interesting to see that. So they obviously did not happen to them. They obviously didn't know what happened, who was responsible for it, how they could get back, and whatnot. And we saw obviously things continuing to happen with Barry and his speed and the Speed Force, who obviously has taken shape in the form of his mother, who's obviously dead. He was still in his time chamber in this episode. He basically resting. He wasn't taking any action in this episode as far as getting in the suit, dressed up as Flash. There was no danger in the city, so basically, Cisco and Chester got stuck back in time. And this episode actually was the main focus for them to figure out who, obviously, which is this time god. He's one of the people responsible for her in the Speed Force, along with him and the big, huge Freza. They call her the monster. That's her name they're giving her. Who attacked and killed Abracadabra a couple episodes ago, and attacked Barry as well, and knocking him out. So they don't know when she's going to show up again, obviously. And now this big, huge guy, who's this time god, who was able to come in and basically go back in time and change his past because he wanted to, because he was a football player who didn't get to make it to the pros in college. So I don't know how that exactly happened. It's very weird to explain that, how he became this quote unquote time god. So we saw that happen. The episode's main focus was Chester basically trying to forgive his father and obviously reconnect with him in a type of way, because during the day that they kept reoccurring, and obviously being stuck in the time loop was the day that obviously Chester's dad died, and he went to go talk to him eventually, but obviously he didn't know how to face him because he was afraid of his dad. And obviously with the whole time travel situations, you know how it is when people go into the past, they can't talk to their family or themselves, because that's going to create some type of I would say a ripple in a rift in time and mess up things, obviously, as we saw with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and different episodes within the Flash, obviously, that show it and that have taken place where things have changed and he's messed up the speed, the timeline. A couple of times we've seen that happen, so we'll see what happens. It was very interesting to see Cisco and Chester travel back in time. Eventually, obviously, they went to an old high school. They were in Chester's old town, and they basically were at his old high school and whatnot. So that was easier for them to get in, obviously, because he knew the area and the lay of the lands for them to get in to find out who was the person who was screwing up the timeline and messing it up, and making sure that they were staying stuck there. But before they even got to meet his father, they obviously walked around, and eventually they ran into some issues with them obviously having to get reset back in time and stay stuck in a time loop. They did figure out obviously who eventually was the person responsible for making sure that this happened. The guy who was the main star for the football team, who was this quote unquote time god. But before that happened, obviously Cisco got hit with amnesia, and he didn't know who he was, and he thought he was his 12-year-old self again, when the this big huge gamma type of time wave of I think it was isotopes or something came over them, and again, just it was a big huge green like force field type of cloud of energy, and then that happened with Chester and Cisco, which forced them to go back into the past, which was stay stuck in 1998, obviously. And because of that, Cisco eventually didn't know who he was. He didn't know who Chester was. He lost his memory, and Chester had to help him remember who he was and why they're there and whatnot. So we saw that take place. It was very interesting. So we'll see what happens on the next the next episode that takes place, which will be season 7, episode 7. But so far, this is obviously going to be Barry trying to keep the Speed Force alive, obviously, while also trying to make sure that he figures out ways to stop the new villains. Now with a couple people coming into the play that were new characters and villains, and the Thawne, who is obviously the Reverse Flash, coming back in some type of capacity. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. And like I said in previous episodes, we saw Abracadabra being taken out. Obviously, the Mirror Master, who is gone out of the picture, but she's still there. She'll still probably come back in some type of capacity. And I don't know if she'll help the Team Flash in some type of way or not, but we'll see what happens with that. There's also Abaddon. So we'll see what happens with that. There's still other villains that are hanging around that haven't been used yet, or still can be used, obviously, in more episodes. We'll see what happens with that. This article only talks about the pop culture references in the 90s that they were mentioned in here. On this episode, this is on ScreenRant.com. I'm not going to go through it because I don't want to go through this whole thing, but it just tells you all the pop culture references to the style, the clothes, and everything that happened in this episode with Chester and obviously Cisco going back in time in 1998, being stuck there was very interesting. This was a very cool episode because obviously it was a time traveling episode, but it was different. It was obviously a chance for Chester's story arc to be actually revealed in a more interesting way, because obviously we didn't know that much about him. So this episode did focus on obviously closure for him with his father, and even though his father's dead, but he was able to travel back into the past to talk to him again one last time and see him alive, which was obviously very interesting and very nice to see, because obviously, like I said, other characters' story arcs and their situations are not explained, but this was one that helped out a lot. So we got to know more of Chester, obviously, in this episode. Him and Cisco have grown closer as in friends, obviously, and co-workers. So let's see what happens with that. There was other people missing from the episode, like Allegra, obviously. And also Camille, she was not in this episode, Cisco's girlfriend, so we'll see what happens with that. Captain Singh was in this episode as well. And obviously the another issue is Killer Frost and Caitlin are still separated. They're two different people now. They're no longer one person. We're sharing one mind, one body, but they have to get back together and fuse back together, obviously, because the new liaison task force government agent personnel who's working with the police department in Joe West came to Joe West and told Joe West, she said, "I'm only here to capture Killer Frost." And Joe West told Killer Frost about this at the end of the episode. She said she didn't care. She's going to live her life and not let anybody stop her. But obviously that's going to be an issue, because if she is captured and taken and experimented on by the government, it's going to be an issue, obviously. Then her getting back together with Caitlin and then fusing back together as one person is going to be a big, huge problem if they can't do that, obviously. If she's captured and they have nowhere to find her. If she's obviously taken, that might be an issue, obviously. But she says, there's no reason for the cops to be after me. I'm not bad Killer Frost anymore. I've changed. I've become a new person. But they obviously don't care about that, and they don't see that because they still see her as a criminal, and all the past crimes that she has committed are still being held against her. So we'll see what happens with that, obviously. But like I said again, this one was a very fun episode. It was much more better than I would say the Mirror Master episode, but the Mirror Master episode was not better than the episode that obviously we saw Abracadabra join in and come in and fight. Psych was very good. I liked the episode that happened the week before the Psych's episode was very good. It was the last 3 episodes have been very good. The Mirror Master episode wasn't that great. The ending for her, obviously, but Abracadabra's episode was very good. And then we had Psych, who was even dangerous bad guy who was messing with people's minds and dreams, and basically he was like a Freddy Krueger. They mentioned him on the show. He was like a Freddy Krueger-esque villain, even though he obviously didn't have this disfigured face. He wore a mask, but we never saw his identity until even when he disappeared. But we'll see what happens with the rest of the season, because obviously it got delayed months ago, and with issues obviously with the COVID, so that slowed production issues obviously down for them. So we'll see what happens with that. That obviously hurt the Superman and Lois show as well. That show is on a current hiatus because of some COVID-19 scare, so they are not showing any new episodes until a couple more months when they start filming again. Back in May, they said that's going to happen. So currently the time slot is being taken over by the the Supergirl, which is in its last season. It was just shown a new. We just saw a new trailer for also another CW show that's based on DC comic book characters, which is obviously the DC Legends of Tomorrow. That show will be back this month in May, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see how that goes and what works out and what happens with that next month in May. So that will be taking place, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes with Sarah Lance being taken by aliens in space. There's supposed to be more other crossovers that are going to happen on the other shows with Black Lightning and DC Legends, obviously, and Superman, that will happen before this year's over. I did see that there has been some reports that the CW is also looking to make a new Green Arrow, so somebody else will be taking over as the Green Arrow, and it won't be Mia Smoke or I believe I forgot, it was his name in the future, Connor Hawke, believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, I forgot his name, but somebody else is supposed to be playing him as the actor. It won't be Stephen Amell again, so we'll see what happens with that. But it's not going to be Mia Smoke. The Green Arrow and the Canary show has been dropped. They were not going to pick it up and give it the green light after all. The CW announced that they were going to do that. They haven't given any word yet, but they just said they're not doing it. After like 6 months, they just kept everybody, and myself included, obviously, if you're a fan of the Green Arrow, you were like, what's going on with the show? They haven't announced anything yet, and they didn't do anything about that until it was finally announced. They just kept putting it off, and they didn't announce we're not going to be picking the show up after all. So we'll see what happens with that, with a new Green Arrow coming out, which would be kind of weird because someone's going to be taking over for Stephen Amell, but it won't be the Green Arrow and the Canary show. It'll just be Green Arrow kind of reborn in some type of way. I don't know. It'll be weird with that. Maybe Connor Hawke will do it in the future, like they showed in the episodes. I think it was Connor Hawke, John Diggle's son. I think that was him. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Connor Hawke, or I don't know if it was Connor Diggle, something like that. But we'll see what happens with that, and obviously in the near future. But that's all I have to say about this episode for The Flash Season 7, Episode 6, obviously, which is called The One with the 90s. Again, for my review. Like I said, it was even better than last week's episode because it was more comedic based, and obviously it was very interesting to see Chester get closure for his dad, who obviously died. Obviously, who didn't get to say goodbye to because he died in a car crash. And yeah, when he was a young kid, he was 12, so he was able to get his dad's inventions and his parts. And he's gonna create this. I don't know. He's creating some type of I don't know what it is, but invention or something. I think it's going to help Team Flash, but it's based off his dad's ideas and stuff. It's his dad's invention. He's carrying on for his father, obviously, now. So we'll see what happens with that and what will be the issue, what will happen with this new invention that he's going to be creating to help Team Flash that his dad obviously built but didn't get a chance to finish. So we'll see what happens with that. That's all I have to say about this. Again, with the Flash, and we'll see what happens in the near future with the other CW shows, and as well with other villains on the show coming back and crossovers with other characters ensuing as well. Thank you again for watching. That's all I have to say about this. Again, thanks. Bye.